It was wrong. Not a human. Imagine a being 2 meters tall, completely white like an albino, with no hair, no eyebrows, and no body hair. Despite its enormous body, its hands and feet are described as tiny. This creature is a master of many things. It can speak different languages, easily communicating with people from various cultures. It plays the violin with magnificent skill and at the same time dances with remarkable grace. It is proficient in all fields: literature, art, philosophy, chemistry, and biology. It even possesses the practical skill to quickly make gunpowder from materials found in nature. Yet, alongside this refined intellectual side, it is incredibly strong, capable of lifting an adult man with one hand and crushing his skull in a single second. This person believes that war is the true God. They commit sexual assault against anyone they set their eyes on, men, women, and especially children, wherever they go. This person introduces himself as Judge Holden, and the judge always wins, never loses, and never dies. Our story, set in 19th century America, begins not with a judge, but with a child. Our main character is a 14-year-old boy, and since he has no name, he is referred to as the kid throughout the book. His mother dies during his birth, and his father is a terrible alcoholic. Unhappy with his boring home life, the book mentions the kid's appetite for violence. The kid eventually packs his bags and runs away from home, throwing himself into the American wilderness. He wanders through vineyards, sleeps on streets, and fights with everyone he encounters for the most trivial reasons. For example, he once drew a knife and fought to the death with a man who told him to get out of my way. When a bartender refused him alcohol, he grabbed a bottle and shattered the man's head. This kid truly has an appetite for violence. What's interesting about him, however, is that this desire for violence has no purpose. It's as if he becomes so cruel simply because he is bored and has nothing better to do. While people around him resort to violence for interests like money and power, the kid just tries to pass the day, filling his free time with violence. I liken the kid character to Meursault in Camus's The Stranger. Both are unable to commit to any belief, motivation, or purpose. They resort to violence as an act of rebellion against the absurdity of life. The kid's path eventually crosses with the Glanton gang, which will fundamentally change his life. Before talking about the Glanton gang, I need to briefly explain the universe of our book. The story, set in the 1800s, takes place after the American-Mexican War has just ended. However, some groups are still fighting among themselves. Native Americans on the U.S.-Mexico border are also part of this war equation. In short, these three sides are hostile to each other. The Glanton gang, however, doesn't align with any of these sides. This gang has only one goal: to gain money and power. Their methods usually involve raiding and plundering Native American tribes, then scalping the killed Native Americans and selling their scalps to the American or Mexican government for money. The gang has no moral code. No matter your religion, language, or race, the only criterion for joining is, can you kill people? The gang includes a ruthless black man named Jackson because his ability to kill is all that matters. Returning to the kid, the gang members witness his appetite for violence and offer him a place in their group. The kid, having nothing better to do, decides to join them. The gang's leader is an outlaw named John Glanton, but whenever the gang needs to negotiate with a foreigner, the judge always handles the talking. The judge, with his enormous stature and intellect, is the secret leader of the gang. He gathers raw materials to make gunpowder when they run out and motivates the gang when their morale is low. The judge is at the head of everything. He stands up and tells the gang a story about a harness maker. The harness maker, trying to support his family, realizes he can make more money by disguising himself as a Native American and extorting passers-by. One day, a young traveler sees through his disguise and advises him, "You have lost your soul. You have moved away from God." Ashamed, the harness maker invites the traveler home. But when the traveler gives him 2 gold coins, the harness maker's greed takes over, and he brazenly asks for more. The angry traveler leaves, but the harness maker catches him on the road and, with a stone, cracks his skull from behind, killing him. He steals the traveler's money and clothes, then lies to his family, saying the traveler was killed by thieves. Years later, on his deathbed, the harness maker confesses to his son. Instead of being horrified, the son, filled with hatred for the dead traveler, opens the grave and scatters the bones, becoming a ruthless killer himself. This strange story illustrates a core point of the judge's philosophy. According to him, all stories of heroism and foundation in history were written with war and blood. He argues that history has lied to people, trying to clean the blood from its hands. Just as the harness maker was able to rewrite his own history by lying to his family, the judge shows that a lie can easily deceive people. He once slandered a preacher, causing a mob to try and lynch him, then casually told someone afterward that he had never seen the preacher before. But the judge's point goes deeper. Even when people learn the truth, they will still stand by the cruel but powerful. If you are on the winning side, you can legitimize any immoral act. The harness maker's son forgave his father because he believed the murder was a necessary act to support the family. The Glanton gang, after massacring a peaceful Native American tribe, took their scalps to the Mexican region and were welcomed as heroes. For the Mexicans, these good and powerful men were simply ruthless killers for their enemies. For the judge, morality is a defense mechanism created by humans. He says, moral laws are human inventions, created to allow the weak to control the strong. He doesn't divide people into good and bad, but into strong and weak, winners and losers, those who dance and those who don't. He sees the harness maker and his son as ideal men because they chose to dance by embracing violence and power. Speaking of father-son relationships, a gang member asks the judge, "Then how should a child be raised?" The judge replies, "Dogs should chase a child. He should try to escape from traps full of hungry lions. He should be left naked in the desert." A person can only prove their power by embracing the most disgusting aspects of life. In this respect, the kid is a figure appreciated by the judge, a young man who has been tempered and matured by war. The judge shows a special and unsettling interest in the kid, seeing him as an apprentice. The judge has an interesting habit. He wants to write notes and draw pictures of everything he sees. A gang member asks him why. The judge gives his famous answer, "That which exists in creation without my knowledge exists without my consent." He sees knowledge as a tool of domination. If he can know everything, he can manipulate everything around him as he wishes. He says, "The freedom of birds is an insult to me. If I could, I would cage them all." This desire to dominate is also evident in his relationship with a mentally disabled gang member named James, whom the judge manipulates into unconditional loyalty. The judge's most striking speech is made by the fire about war. He argues that people can think whatever they want about war, but it is the only thing that continues to exist. War is like a stone that has never moved from its place. War is the only true game because, ultimately, war pushes the limits of our existence. War is God. The judge believes that war is the truest form of prophecy, determining who deserves to live or die. He sees little difference between a man of God and a man of war, noting that religions themselves resort to war to spread. For him, war is God means that war, like a deity, has always existed, always will, and gives meaning to life by granting some people the right to live and taking the lives of others. The judge character is thought to be inspired by a real person named Judge Holden of Texas, mentioned in the memoirs of a soldier named Samuel Chamberlain, who rode with the real Glanton gang in the 1800s. Chamberlain described Holden as a huge, hairless man who was the most educated person in northern Mexico, but also a ruthless killer who committed horrific crimes. Even the brutal members of the Glanton gang were repulsed by Holden's cruelty. This real-life figure, with his intellectual mastery and terrible savagery, is the basis for the fictional judge. Like every gang, the Glanton gang comes to an end. A large tribe of Yuma Native Americans, seeking revenge for the massacre of their people, launch a surprise attack and slaughter almost all the gang members. The judge and the kid are among the handful of survivors. The judge's mood is chilling. He seems ready to kill the remaining members himself and specifically turns against the kid, hunting him through the desert. The kid narrowly escapes the judge and disappears. Years pass. The kid, now a grown man, tries to leave his savage life behind and become a better person, but he is haunted by dreams of the judge. His fear comes true one day when he sees the judge's reflection in a bar mirror. The judge corners the kid in the restroom. The book, which is known for its brutal descriptions, chooses to remain silent about the violence that follows, implying that the judge first sexually assaults and then kills the kid. The judge returns to the bar and dances, naked, to the delight of the crowd, declaring, "I never sleep. I never die." The book's final message is complex. The judge ultimately fails to make the kid embrace his war-worshipping philosophy, seeing him as a disappointment for seeking a better life. The judge, who believes he can master all creation, could not draw or solve the kid. However, the kid doesn't win either. His biggest mistake, symbolized by the Four of Cups tarot card, is his aimlessness and nihilism. He had opportunities to kill the judge or leave the gang, but failed to act. Blood Meridian examines Nietzsche's philosophy through the judge, who embodies the will to power, and the kid, who shows the dangers of nihilism.